And we are live. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever it is you are in the world. And welcome to edition of Living World of Darkness, a crossover scene for Changeling the Dreaming and Mage the Awaken Ascension.
Ascension, damn it. It's New World.
I always get confused. Anyways, this scene has been in the works for a couple of weeks now after Maggie met with the changeling known as Priti Patel.
Not a changeling.
Adheen?
Yeah, they work differently.
Okay. So she met with the Adheen named Priti Patel. And after a brief conversation, Maggie was able to discern and learn that she was running for mayor. And considering her Justice Watchdog blog, Maggie couldn't help but reach out and try for an interview. After getting an agreement on this at a bar and a phone number, Maggie finally has had the time and the gumption to go ahead and give Miss Patel's office a call. And so, with any luck, they have arranged a meeting at a well-known coffee shop somewhere in Midtown Manhattan.
Okay. They would suggest that you just go to her office.
Or the office works too.
Okay. The office is in Queens. You would go there. It's not where she actually is a public defender. That's separate, but this space is an old community center, and they're on the 3rd floor. It's very wide open spaces. It's still not being used to its full capacity. It's a little bit better. She has been able to gather some people, but still it's not packed. Very nice, clean. They're all very happy to see you, of course. And yeah, you are ushered into one of their boardrooms. There's coffee there. There's also Dunkin' Donuts.
Maggie will hit up those Dunkin' Donuts pretty quickly, looking for anything that resembles a powdered jelly donut.
Oh yeah, they'll be there. Without much more pomp or ceremony, Margarita, Priti Patel will come in. Hello. So happy that we were finally able to make this work.
I know. I'm sorry I didn't contact you sooner. I've been a little busy getting ready for new semester. So
Completely understandable. What's your major?
graphic design of all things.
Oh. Interesting resume you're getting there.
Well, the blog is kind of my own thing. This is something kind of more of a personal thing for me. So.
Okay. Well, how shall we begin?
She'll look at the table. Sitting, I guess, would be fine.
Okay. Now, I'm sure that you're aware of Flick and Shore. Would you like me to talk a little bit about my platform?
Yeah, sure. And she'll kind of reach into her bag and she'll take out her laptop, obviously, and set that up. Little notepad, and she sets up a digital recorder next to everything. You don't mind if I record all this? I'm not going to be using audio for my post. It's just so I can actually have a reference of what I'm writing.
Okay. It's just English is not my first language, and this isn't a speech. I just want to make sure that that I'm understood, I suppose.
Everything will be posted up in a blog post, so you don't have to worry about a actual audio recording of all this coming up. And I always erase the thing after I'm done.
Thank you.
Mhm.
No, I wouldn't mind then.
All right. And she'll hit the little record button.
If I had to liken myself to any of the current potential primary nominees that are out there for the presidential race, I would like to think that I'm closest to Bernie Sanders. And I know you hear that and you're like, you are no Bernie Sanders. But I want to see a lot of similarities. Nobody thought the Green Party would get this far. Nobody thought a socialist would get as far as he had. I am mainly donation source. I don't have any large corporations behind me or anything. I'm hardly Mr. Awanatu in that respect. But I have a passion for what I do and a voice that I think is really resonating here. I really care about these boroughs. And I think that's why I'm sticking. And finally, like Senator Sanders, even if I'm not elected, it's not what I want, but I'm hoping at least, like him, to make enough noise to make the other two candidates, Flick and Shore, change their platform. Because although Shore hasn't come out with what he's going to say, I think we all know that his platform is going to be very, very similar to what we've seen before. And Flick hasn't said anything. I suppose that's another similarity. The littler people in the race tend to come up with their platforms first. Awanatu and myself were the first to come up with our platforms.
What do you think about candidate Awantu's platforms?
Well, as I've said before, publicly in speech, the most confusing thing about his speeches is that he proposes projects that are already in place, and then he suggests that the funding come from his own private resources. And I've never heard a candidate do it because it's flagrantly open to compromise. It's, according to Citizens versus United, it's illegal past a certain contribution limit if it's done privately through yourself. And also, it's not sustainable. So I can't remark much more on his platform.
Fair. Are you aware of what my particular blog and related blogs are about?
I will be honest, I didn't know at first, but the aides have been very helpful. You're interested in change. I admire that.
Thank you. I suppose what myself and my readers are interested in are the recent spike in what is becoming quickly an epidemic of police violence against the populace over the past 3 years, and we've seen it all over the country. What is your thoughts on what we've seen in the very last 6 months?
I think it's a pattern, and we need to go further back than just 6 months. We need to go back to about 2 years. Yes, there has been a rash of violence coming from our men in uniform, and I would suggest retraining, different recruitment methods. But also, I really want to concentrate on redistribution, because if you look at it, the majority of our violent crimes are only happening in 3 boroughs. And yet we don't have different allocations. This violence spike started about 2 years ago, and about every 3 to 4 months seems to spike up again. Is it part of a larger pattern? We don't know. We don't have the statistics. There hasn't been enough record keeping. We haven't been very efficient.
Well, in the past 10 years, since 2012, there's been almost $1 billion in settlements in cases that involve police brutality. And that's only grown since. Aside from retraining and reallotment, what would you say to those cases that come up if you are elected? How would you deal with the situations if they are brought to you, such as, well, and she'll pull out her phone and she'll set it down in front of Miss Patel, and she'll bring up a video where an officer, an NYPD officer, is very clearly shown planting evidence in a young man's pocket.
I don't know what you want me to say.
I'm interested in how you would deal with situations such as these.
I would bring it to the chief of police. Do you want me to proceed as if that office didn't exist?
I suppose if you were in the chief's position, how would you handle things? How would you want things to be handled?
Miss Keller, I'm not the chief of police. What I see personally is wrong. I would work with the chief of police, as have other mayors, successfully in other cities, Virginia being the most notable. But I wouldn't take any independent actions.
Would you plan on any types of policy changes or any changes into procedure when acts of police brutality and violence are brought to bear? Or would you like to see any, I should say?
Miss Keller, could you turn off the recording?
She'll reach up and press the button.
I'm going to work with the police force. I need their trust. And I need the people's trust. Things go wrong when you come at one side or the other aggressively. And we've seen that before in other cities. Now, I'm here to do this interview with you, and I'm happy to talk about all my other points too, but it seems like you really want to talk about the police brutality. And I'm going to tell you that my answer isn't going to change. I'm going to work with the chief of police unless I see something clearly wrong.
Is there not enough evidence in front of you from multiple instances that we've seen here in Manhattan alone? This video, and she points to her phone, being one of them.
What you showed me right here. I would work with the chief of police. The two things I suggested are drastic changes. A focus away from recruiting from former military is drastic, and in some states, unheard of. Are you aware of veterans' preference?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Gives you about 5 extra points. There's several jobs that do that, and it adds it automatically to your resume. Usually you need to score over 21, I believe, on their point system. That's 5 extra points off the bat. That's why you see a lot of former police, or a lot of former military in police positions, firefighters, border patrol, and prisons. You also see a pattern of violence in these professions. Moving away from that is drastic. Retraining people that have been taught the same thing, the same pattern of abuse, neglect. That's going to take a long time, and they are sweeping. But I also need the trust of the chief of police while I gain the trust of my own constituents.
Maggie sits back in her chair, and she sort of rests her hands up against the bottom of her chin, just covering her lips, and she seems to be sort of taking it all in, absorbing it. All right, that's a fairly reassuring platform.
Well, thank you. Just because my own family might have had bad personal experiences or good personal experiences as recent immigrants here isn't going to color what I say. But I think it is incredibly reassuring that we have Shore and we have Flick, but even somebody like myself that is first generation and Mr. Owanatu, who is indigenous, are able to run.
Do you see your ethnicity at all hindering or helping your platform, one way or the other?
I think it's helped in Queens, not so much in the other boroughs. But if I'm to stick, I have to run on just more than that. Obama had to run on more than just his ethnicity. His whole slogan was, I am completely different from George W. Bush. Completely. My policies are exactly the opposite. He didn't just say I'm black. Hillary didn't just say that I'm a woman. She's not just saying I'm a woman right now. So I think it helped initially, but over the long run, I hope it's my policies that will carry me through.
What about your background in the criminal justice system?
I thought it was obvious. That's why I've given so much thought to retraining. That's why I know about the veterans' preference in the point system.
Aside from sweeping changes with the NYPD, aside with municipal projects such as parks and the like, in what other ways are you hoping that you can affect New York as a whole?
Renegotiated trade agreements. We are New York City. Out of all of the major American cities, we stand to gain the most out of renegotiating all of our big contracts. Everybody wants a piece of New York City. We're in the best position, and with a new party coming in, we can be taken credibly. There's 6 companies that I would like to focus on. They are municipal, largely. However, I would also like to provide an incentive for eco-friendly overseas companies to come. And before you say, bring workers from overseas and so forth, it actually does the opposite. It would be incredibly expensive for them to bring their workers over here. So they would hire here. That would net us an estimated $1.5 billion in revenue in 2 years. The cost-saving measures to the city alone are a further $2.14 million. Would you like me to talk about the projects?
Indeed, although I do wonder, do you have a rough estimate of how many jobs you think you could possibly create with this?
Yes. It's, what is it? If it all went according to plan within the first 2 years, it would be 112,000. If it was sustained over third quarter, over a further year, it would go to 340,000 new jobs, and they're all good paying jobs. $21 or over an hour.
That's impressive. What kind of projects are these?
I'm sure that you've heard of solar-powered roadways.
Yes, I've seen videos on them, but I've also read a few articles that refute their viability.
Indeed. However, if you actually look at parking lots, that's what I want to focus on. That's actually enough for New York City. If we actually did all of the roadways and so forth, over the next 5 years, over the next 20 years, yes, the repairs would start to catch up with us. However, parking lots sustain far less damage. And also, if we're just talking about our city, we could save something that's just not on here. She gives the number that I will send you at the end of this scene because I have it somewhere. I sent it to JC.
Okay.
Anyways, okay, if we do the parking lots, if we were to do all the highways, we would actually have too much energy. Like a fantastic overage. It would be insane, but it's not practical for a lot of reasons. Even before the repairs, I shot it down because the construction time is insane, especially for New York City. I took a brief from London where they were taking a look at that. I think the only reason that Amsterdam is experimenting with that right now is because it's not in the touristy section. And even then, they haven't even done like a 16th of the city itself. It's kind of just a toy right now. Parking lots, on the other hand, they've actually done this. If you go to Lakeview, Oregon, they're actually experimenting with that. They already know how much energy it's going to yield. They've gotten funding from the federal government before. Repairs are very low. They're sustainable. It's enough energy. That's my favorite project. The next one is oh, yes, water saving measures. Okay, we waste an incredible amount of water. We have several major pipelines. They all either seem to go through the Bronx or Manhattan. We've got, it would take about 4 years to complete the projects. If we did, though, it would yield us an amazing cost savings, and that is actually something that we could pass on to people in that area. In effect, their energy bills would be a whole lot lower.
How exactly are you planning to reclaim, I suppose, how would you reclaim this water if it's lost? So to speak?
It's not, it is lost, but it's not reclamation in the way that it was in, did you ever see the beginning of Waterworld?
Yes.
Okay, we're not going to do anything that drastic, so don't worry.
I don't think New Yorkers as a whole would have a stomach for it.
I don't
And
know.
that's saying something.
I don't know. They impress me. Okay, our pipes are ancient.
Yes.
Fantastically ancient. They leak everywhere. And all they do is breed mold. Honestly, it sits there, it gets fetid, and it's horrific. It actually becomes a health hazard in some of these sewers. It's pretty terrible. New pipes. That's it. That's it. And
it's a very big infrastructure project.
But it can be done, and it's actually been brought up before. But the reason that it hasn't been done is because the last time it was brought up was in 2007. And do you remember what happened in 2007?
Out of character, I think that's the blackout, wasn't it?
No, it's Wall Street crash.
Ah,
Nobody has any money.
yes. Okay.
Okay. It's viable. There's an existing plan for it.
How much is that going to cost the city?
It's actually not going to if we decriminalize marijuana.
I saw that on your platform. Are you...
We have a very... We stand behind Representative Hakeem Jeffries. He is going to be lobbying for that. However, we can pay for this, and I can submit the budget to you afterwards, but unlike some of my fellow candidates here, I actually have spent a lot of time thinking about where we would get these funds from, and it's not going to be my own piggy bank. This is something we can do if we can commit to it.
Now, when you say decriminalization, there are a lot of folks that would read this blog post and immediately go to, say, Colorado or Washington when they go on their terms of thinking. Are we talking about recreational legalization, or are we simply talking about making it a citation rather than an arrestable offense?
Well, under certain amounts, it currently is just a citation here in New York City.
Yes.
Do you remember the Saturday Night Live episode?
Unfortunately, most of my Saturday nights involve either A, being out, or B, being in with a pile of books nearly as tall as I am.
Well, you have to YouTube it. It's got Woody Harrelson in it, and it's pretty amazing. I'm talking about recreational.
You'd make a lot of people happy in this city.
And I'd make a lot of people unhappy as well.
This is true.
However, I think there's a shift going on. We're seeing swing states such as Florida putting it on the ballot. We're seeing liberal states flat out voting it in. Why not New York City? Why not New York State? Come on, we're supposed to get everything first. No, I think this would have been more drastic even 5 years ago. But we've had a lot of changes, and we've had a lot of changes very quickly. And the world hasn't ended. And I know 2 states that you just mentioned that made an awful lot of money.
And with the size of, say, New York City alone, that's a fair bit of taxable revenue.
Mm-hmm.
Have you projected figures on that?
It's insane. It could actually get into, it could get past the $1 trillion mark.
And that's just New York City alone.
It depends on how well the regulation is, just how much of it we're able to keep tabs on. But yeah, there's been several projections. That's the less conservative one. We're really not sure. However, if we're able to do that, it puts us in a surplus. If you look over my budget, everything is currently accounted for without it.
And with it, you would have a mighty fine surplus on hand.
I would reinvest it right back in.
Mm-hmm.
Very quickly, because who knows who will be voted in after me. I want to go further than the ferry that was introduced a year ago. Mr. Awanatu suggested that anyways, we already have a ferry. However, I want to concentrate on more lines. If you listen to one of my previous speeches, I talk about opening 5 more lines. They already exist. We're just not using them. However, if we're willing to make that initial investment of workers for these lines, they will pay for themselves after the first quarter, which is insane. But people are willing to use it, to use old lines. They're not the prettiest, but people are willing to do that if it means not having to pay $40 for a taxi.
That would be nice. Speaking from experience.
It's really, I want to emphasize any surplus that we get, I want to reinvest back into the community. You know, parks are obviously my pet project, and I'm finding I'm having to argue for them a lot more than I ever thought I would. I thought initially, naive me thought everybody would want a park. But yes, parks, public transportation, actual community centers. That was something that was big in the 80s and has gone away now, and it's really sad. The controlled rent areas, the communities, they're disappearing. Anyways,
what about our schools?
That's actually not part of my platform.
I noticed it wasn't. Have you given any thought to where, with this surplus, reinvesting into our schools?
tell you what, Maggie. We get that surplus. Is the recording still off?
She hasn't touched it since.
Okay.
She's just been writing down, like, obviously key points.
When do you graduate?
When I get tired of being a career student. But if everything goes well, the next 2 years.
Okay. Well then, if I get elected, what do you think about interning?
Me?
Yeah.
She starts rubbing the back of her head. You'd want me to work in an office environment?
No. You're going to go and help me with those schools. And you would be surprised how little time I get to spend here in this office. The actual campaign managers, yeah, even they don't spend too much time here.
I'm definitely a people person, but that's really high stakes. I mean,
You wouldn't be doing it alone.
Okay. Is it a paid internship?
It'll be at least $21 an hour.
It doesn't take her long to think that one over. And she just smiles at Miss Patel. I'm supposing I would probably have to change my attire for that one, though.
You would need to go out and meet with people, so perhaps. However, I'm very sorry. I will be happy to answer any further questions you have over text and also to submit the budget plan to you. But I really need to be going.
No, it's fine. I appreciate this. I'll submit the post to you before I actually put it up.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, and with that, I really need to get going. Mommy stuff.